In the dialogue, we'll learn 5 important elements of strategy: parties, interests, value, power, and ethics. And along the way, we'll study useful vocabulary and idioms. As you listen to the second half of Brian's interview, try to answer the following listening questions. Listening questions. 1. What is the interviewer talking about when he refers to a trap? 2. How does Brian say we should think about interests? 3. What does Brian say we should try to maximise in order to overcome blockage in a negotiation?
Okay, and are those the main things to planning strategy?
Not by a long shot. There are several other things to consider. For instance, we should constantly be asking ourselves, who are the real parties in the negotiation? Who are the decision makers? Sometimes the person sitting across the table from you is not the person in charge, or isn't who he seems to be.
Right. I can see how that could be a trap.
Absolutely. And another thing is to think creatively about interests. That means, what are their fundamental needs and priorities? A lot of people make the mistake of not considering carefully where their opposite number is coming from and what goals he has to accomplish.
That has to do with benefits?
Certainly. And it leads into a discussion of value. We are looking for synergy effects. That is, ways to make 1 + 1 equal more than 2. The question is, how can value be created? And who is likely to get it? We need to think outside the box.
Can you give me an example?
Well, for instance, you may be interested in buying my product because it contributes to the image of your store. Or you may want to acquire my business because it will help you control a key part of the market. There is much more to all this than a simple commercial transaction.
Okay. So far, we've only talked about positive things. What are the negatives that come up in a negotiation?
There's certainly negatives as well. We often call these barriers. It's important to think of these not just in terms of obstacles that might prevent agreement, but much more subtly, as impediments to maximizing joint value.
So, overcoming blockage is not just about making the deal. It's about maximizing value as well.
That's right. And to do that, you have to watch out for the ways that various parties influence the negotiation process and its outcome. This kind of power to remove or set up barriers to agreement can be both a blessing and a curse.
It seems to me that there's one last thing that hasn't come into the discussion so far, and that's, morally, what is the right thing to do?
If you had asked that question to me 15 years ago, I might have laughed. But these days we think of ethics in broader terms to include the environment, corporate social responsibility, shareholder rights, and all these areas have a lot of potential value for companies.